Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Brode from Deep Knowledge Investing. We work with hedge funds, family offices, registered investment advisors, and individuals like you to help you get better returns in the stock market. I'm here with our host, Robb Fahrion, the CEO and founder of Flying V, Deep Knowledge Investing's digital marketing partner. Robb, how was your week?
Week was great. Eclipse day, but I missed the eclipse, so hopefully you saw it up there in New York, if that's where you are.
Yeah, I'm in Connecticut right now. I got out in the afternoon, made a point of following instructions and staring straight into the sun because I know that's what they told us to do. Everything's a little hazy now, but the sun was so bright, I actually couldn't see the moon crossing in front of it. Just it was too much to look at. But I did notice outside, we went from super bright to like dark and a very twilight kind of feel in the middle of the afternoon.
Interesting. Yeah, I had somebody ask me on my 2 p.m. Pacific call if I saw the eclipse or if I knew about the eclipse, and I didn't know anything about the eclipse and realized it passed through somewhere around 11 a.m. So completely out of the loop on this side. But either way, I was more focused on this issue of our 5 things for this week. We're calling it the Shockwave Takeover issue. If you've been following DKI at all over the last week or 2 weeks, obviously Shockwave Medical, big news. We'll get to that in a minute. Two special guests this week, which we're really excited about, both bringing different angles, different ends of the spectrum. So we'll be really excited for that. And Gary, I'll turn it over to you to introduce our first guest right out of the gate.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Robb. So here on the 5 things, the last few weeks, we've been talking a lot about commercial real estate, and we've been getting a lot of questions about it. So we thought we would bring you an expert. I have with me Howard Freedland from Echo Fine Properties and Echo Commercial Properties. Howard is also a member of the Deep Knowledge Investing Board of Advisors. He is a real estate broker and a real estate expert specializing in commercial real estate. Howard, how was your eclipse day?
My eclipse day was just outstanding. Thank you very much for asking. Just to correct, I'm not a broker. I am an associate, but nonetheless, the differences in my capabilities, I can still leap tall buildings with a single bound, and I can't stare at an eclipse without getting my eyes hurt.
All right, fair enough. Well, for somebody who's not a broker, I have seen you do millions and millions of dollars of both residential and commercial transactions. So something's
No,
going
thanks.
right there.
I appreciate you.
All right, so let's talk about the background for this key thing. There was an NAR settlement. NAR stands for National Association of Realtors. First, let's just explain to people what is that settlement? What does it mean? What actually happened?
Okay, so this all has to do with commissions, and it all has to do with bad behavior. And I have to be careful because right now the Department of Justice has been called in on this thing. So to say that this is an evolving situation that is extremely complex, to sum it up in one statement is very, very difficult. Let's just say bad behavior begets bad decisions. And the bad behavior was an awful lot having to do with commissions and requiring certain things of people when truly they could be negotiated.
Okay, so basically what was happening were certain real estate brokers who don't work at your firm were pressuring their clients to sign commission agreements that were disadvantageous to the client. As a result, there was a settlement from the National Association of Realtors that changes the way people will pay their real estate brokers. Is that a fair summation?
That's a fair summation. There's a little bit more nuance to it, but again, as it is evolving, I don't want to confuse the issue. The issue here is that uh, we've got a, let's separate it into two categories: commercial and residential. We now have a residential real estate faction of this, of this business that is going to have to do their business differently. The commercial end isn't going to be affected as much because we've been doing that for a long time. To expand on that, what that means is that going forward, if this goes into if this gets enacted, you're going to see people with buyer representation agreements, whereas now we don't use them as much for residential. You're going to see predetermined commission negotiations as opposed to just, well, the seller's going to be responsible for X. It used to be that 6% was standard. 3% on the buy side, 3% on the sell side. Then you'd see, well, 6% turns into 4% and 2%. Maybe there's a side deal going on. That's what caused a lot of the hubbub, that it wasn't clean and straightforward. Now, what people are concerned about is, okay, are we going to have to pay for a buyer representation? Are we going to have certain expenses? Are those going away? It's causing a lot of consumers an awful lot of questions.
All right. So what I hear you saying is this legislation, the settlement, will not and doesn't affect the commercial real estate market because those broker agreements are already negotiated. And so this doesn't change the commercial market.
When I do a commercial deal, just for the sake of discussion, I'll go up to someone and say, okay, I want to represent you for this property or these properties. And it says, if we cannot come to an agreement with the seller, then we will talk about a supplemental commission agreement between us and the buyer. There is no predetermined commission.
Okay. So understood. The reason there's no change in pricing or the market on the commercial side is because those agreements were always negotiated. Correct. I've seen a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worries about how this change in regulation, the settlement, will affect residential real estate prices. What's your view? Does this make residential prices go up or down?
It has the potential to have prices, honestly, it has potential to have such a little effect that people are arguing over a very small amount right now. Let's see if we can understand this. So they offer 3% to the people that are selling for them. Buyers brokers aren't going to do their work for free. And if there aren't any buyers brokers, the job still has to be done. So the negotiation of contracts, the drawing up of contracts, the following the process through, all of these things will have to be contracted for. So there will be costs, whether they're borne upon the seller or the buyer is now going to be open for debate. Will the seller lower their price because they don't have a 3% amount hung on them? Probably not. I don't see it happening. If it happens, it's going to be a slight percentage of that. But I also don't think that it's going away either, because I think that sellers have an inherent need to want to motivate people to come in and show their homes.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is the maximum amount of pricing change on this could be 3%, but it could easily be yes. Sorry, not yes. It could easily be less. The thing that you wrote, and this is in the written version of the 5 things. I'm going to read this. This was Howard's line, which I thought was really interesting and a good way to frame the whole discussion. Talking about the need for home buyers to pay for some sort of assistance and some sort of representation. And it says, the way they pay and the people they pay may change, but any meaningful change to housing prices as a result of the new rules is questionable at best. I think that's a great way to sum it up.
100%. We don't know. But ultimately, this job has to be done by professionals. And can you imagine what attorneys are going to charge to do this if they say, well, we don't want a real estate person to do it. I'll just have my attorney take care of it. Huh. What's your attorney going to say when you say, well, my inspection's got to be scheduled? Well, that's great. You should hire an inspector. Well, wait, shouldn't you be doing that? No. Why? Because you're not paying me.
Right. Or I'm happy to do it. This is what I charge by the hour.
Right.
Exactly. And you think you're not going to, I mean, you think we charge a lot as real estate professionals. Wait until you get that legal bill for every single thing that needs to be done. Not to mention, again, the nuance, the little things. And I think people get very cynical because of some bad actors. Of course, you have bad behavior and the entire group gets blamed for it. But there's a tremendous amount of work that gets done. And, you're going to need people that are contracted to do it. So the conversation that I had with a client 2 weeks ago in negotiating, they didn't have representation on a house that my partner and I were trying to sell. And They said to me, well, I'll tell you what, because we'd offered a 1% break since we would have both sides. I said, we'll give you 1% towards closing costs. They said, no, we're going to ask for a 3% break. I said, so you're taking all of it. Okay. And they said, well, will you write up this contract? I said, no. They said, why? Because you're not paying for me to do it. Oh, I said, you need to have an attorney draw up the contract. I said, okay, well, we can do that. That's fine. When it's accepted, we're going to need to do. They went through this litany of items that, of course, they knew had to be done, and they hadn't given any consideration to who was going to do it and who they were going to pay for it. So it came down to, by the time we line listed and did an a la carte menu, they're like, okay, maybe we should give you some percent. And I'm like, that's up to you. I can't. So I think that people are making short-sighted inferences based on what they think this decision means. It's evolving. This is a really complex decision. And I just wrote a piece, What I Don't Know. And it's as opposed to what I do. It's more important right now to try to understand the basis by which it's happening and then follow it through with, okay, what's really going to make this work, and what's the net effect going to be? It's going to be several months before we know the answer to those questions.
Howard, you might have answered the question a little bit right there with the uncertainty, but I actually had a client of mine. We represent a few different real estate brokers, agents.
Sure.
One gentleman who 95%, he was telling me representation on the buyer's side, right? So he gave me a call, obviously in a panic, ready to at wit's end. What would you say to those guys? Is there any advice? Is it a wait and see? Because obviously that's where I think the business, he's uncertain, right, about how am I actually going to be making money moving forward.
So here's what I tell people, and this is not a holier than thou moment, right? I've been doing this a few years, and this can be put onto anybody doing any work anywhere, and that is refine your craft. Become really good at what you do. The best way you handle obsolescence is by honing your talent and showing that you deserve to be paid for what you do. It hasn't changed anything at this point, right? It's still the same free for all it was before.
Right.
But, everybody needs to remember something, and that is this was all born out of bad behavior. So show good behavior, show a work product. And honestly, the attorney for Echo has been working with the company to make sure that we have documentation that is above board and very, very clear. We have to sit with every client now. And even though it hasn't gone into, it hasn't been enacted, we're going with everybody and explaining, look, this is a process by which everybody needs to make a commission. And here's what we're doing for our commission. And these are the things we're tending to. And we're trying to be a lot more transparent and a lot more direct with how that is. So again, it's on our shoulders to prove that we deserve to be paid for what we do. So it's about work.
All right.
Howard. And he's right to be nervous. There's a lot of people running around with very bad information right now. Sure. And the best thing I can say is, please stop reading everybody's opinion on this and go with what you know. And if what you know is zero, then work harder at being good at what you do.
Howard, great description of the situation with the NAR decision, explaining the lack of effect on commercial real estate prices and the potential but small effect on residential. I know you are a third-degree black belt in a very specific form of martial arts, and you are on your way to go teach.
Yes.
So congratulations on achieving that rank. And
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great class.
I'm going to go get punched and hit. And I appreciate that. Look, Rob, Gary, it's fantastic to see you. And, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Howard.
We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Take care.
Great. Yeah, really interesting, Gary. Yeah, my client called me in an absolute panic. I hadn't even known what happened, and he was at wit's end. But yeah, very interesting. Kind of same thing though. He said the same. Hey, he's still got 3-4 months now after he cooled down to where, well, we're not really sure what exactly is going to happen. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Again, if you're following along, that was our point number 5: real estate commission chaos. what's it mean for you? Howard Freedland. Howard, thanks for being on. Member of DKI Board of Advisors as well. And now, first time ever, right? I
Yeah,
believe, Gary, we
it
actually have
is.
a second guest and very special guest this time, man behind the curtain in a lot of ways. So we're really excited to bring him to the forefront.
Yeah, so we are now introducing Andrew Brown, DKI intern, who came to us from the University of Tennessee. For anyone who's wondering why, why is actually let's see if we can get him on screen here. For anyone who's wondering, why is Andrew here? Why is he talking to us? Well, it's really simple. Let's talk about some of the things that he's done, and I think it's a great point and a great inspiration for some young people. Andrew came to Deep Knowledge Investing about 2 months ago. And if any of you have noticed a gigantic increase in the amount of video production that we have coming out, a huge part of that is because of Andrew. Just 2 months in, he does the vast majority of the graphs for the 5 things. Every week, he pitches 1 or 2 things for me to put in the 5 things. Every week, we take 1 or 2 of them. The next one we're going to talk about is one that he pitched. He's been cutting up video and producing more content, getting it posted. It is not an exaggeration to say that we are doing more work and better work because of Andrew as a firm. And on top of that, he's already at a point where he saves me hours a week of work that, that's time that got freed up for me to focus on stock ideas. So for all of you young people who are wondering, how do I do this? How do I end up in a position where I'm opining? The answer is go find a place to work and then find a way to save the senior people there hours every week. Do great work, save them time, contribute, and you will be in a position like that. That's my career advice for everyone. Andrew, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. How did it go with the eclipse?
Good, good. Very cloudy here in Knoxville today, but got to see a peek of it, so good day.
All right. So let's talk about the CBO. What does that stand for?
Congressional Budget Office.
All right. And what did they say this week? Why are we paying attention? Who cares what the CBO says? I'm guessing when you were out with your friends last weekend, this was like the whole conversation, right? You guys went out for drinks, went to a
Oh yeah,
party, and we're talking about the CBO, right?
that's all we were talking about the whole time.
All right. Good news. So who cares? Why are we talking about the CBO?
Yeah, so they kind of released a 30-year outlook to 2054. And so what that kind of outlook's projecting is that debt to GDP will reach 166% by the year 2054. But as of today, our debt is at about 35 trillion and our kind of total economy is about 27 trillion. So that's over 100% of debt to GDP as of right now. And their kind of projection starts at 100%. But as you can see from what I just said, that's over 100% already today. So their projections as of right now, they can't even get them right as of today. And so on kind of the longer term view, they believe that it's going to increase to 166%. But here at DKI, we kind of very strongly do not believe that. And Gary has a strong stance on that. And so with that debt, it's increasing by 1 trillion every 100 days. And as that increases, so does the interest expense. And so that's a huge amount of debt and interest expense for us, the taxpayers, to be paying. And it's really kind of becoming a huge hole that it's going to be really tough to get out of. And kind of what kind of led to that is the 2008 financial crisis. We had a lot of company-wide bailouts. And then also more recently, 2020 and COVID, lots of government money flowing into the economy. DKI has talked a lot about that. And so those stimulus checks are really just going straight to our debt. And that's kind of how it's come to be.
Right. So the debt of the United States has doubled in the last 8 years. Um, we are at a run rate, as Andrew just pointed out, of increasing our debt by ballpark $3.5 trillion on balance sheet every year, which if you divide that into an economy of about $27 trillion, that's a 13% increase. Now, And by the way, it's a 13% increase in 1 year. Again, the CBO is acting like we're at 100% debt to GDP. That is not correct. That number is a lie. But if we increase that by 13% every year, it's not going to take 30 years to get to 166%. Now, some people are going to say, okay, wait a minute, Gary, but you're cheating. You're assuming the economy stays flat at 27 trillion, that there's no economic growth. Great point. We're with you, right? The denominator in this case, which is GDP, is going to increase as well. However, something we talked about, and Rob, you can remind me, this was 2 or 3 weeks ago, we talked on the 5 things about the fact that the increase in government debt is greater right now than the increase in GDP. In other words, government spending, which adds to GDP, whether it creates value or not, is destroying value. And so we have debt rising faster than GDP. And so they're saying we're going to go from, Andrew, where are we right now? What's the current ratio? Right?
I think we are at what?
Well, let's see. If we've got 35 trillion divided by 27 trillion, so we're at 130% right now, right? So they're saying 166% in 30 years. Andrew, the only way that can happen is if Congress cuts spending or we have an unprecedented GDP growth that this country has never seen before. So do we have, as a mature economy, growth we've never seen before, or is Congress going to cut spending? Help me out. What do you think happens?
No.
Gary, I
No.
think one point to be made too that we might want to call out. You're willing to put a pretty big bet on the GDP hitting 166% long before 2054, right?
Yeah, let's be crystal clear on this. Here at Deep Knowledge Investing, we support our people. I am so confident in the work that Andrew Brown, DKI intern from the University of Tennessee, did on this. I am prepared to put money up on this. We are going to put money up to back Andrew's claim, to back Andrew's research. So here's what I'm offering. The CBO, the United States Congressional Budget Office, is saying debt to GDP of 166% in 30 years. That's 2054. I will put $100,000 up on the under. All right. I will put $100,000 up saying we hit 166% well before 2054. If anyone listening to this wants to take the other side of it and say, no, at no point before 2054 will the United States have debt to GDP of 166% or higher. Before that, let me know. We will get DKI attorney and board member Phil Kessler to write up the contract. We'll each put up $100,000 and, we'll see what's happening there. But I'm totally serious. Andrew's work on this is so right and so solid. I will put 6 figures of my own net worth up against anybody who wants to bet we hit that 166% by 2054. After, I'm going to take everything before 2054.
Incredible day. Eclipse, Shockwave Takeover issue, the name of it. Gary's putting $100,000 of his own money up on a bet, and I'm backing him as well. So let us know.
By
Get
the
in
way,
the comments, agree, disagree,
Yeah.
thumbs up, share it with everybody, find the taker.
Yeah, and for clarity, because it's my firm, I get the first $100,000 of action. If any of you want to bet more than $100,000 on this, we got Robb to take side. He's going to take the side action on this.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of side action going.
Right. Yeah, Robb, I'm sure we can put you down for 10 or 20K, maybe
easy.
more. So if we have more than $100,000 of takers, don't worry. We got people who would take the side action on this. Andrew, have you ever had anybody bet 6 figures on your financial research?
I don't think I have.
All right. Well,
No.
It's happening in public. This is how much we value you and your work and how much confidence we have in the analysis you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Nice job. Great work. Get back to it and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you.
All right.
Thanks, Andrew. Great stuff. I feel like we have to find something like that every week now. That really gets me going. At least the excitement level is it's incredible. So Thing number two, four in the written was CBO says we're heading for 166% debt to GDP. DKI, obviously, Andrew, Gary, myself, completely disagree. Good stuff. Andrew, I echo every single sentiment you had, Gary, too. Young guy putting in incredible work, and yeah, we wouldn't be where we're at without him as well. So
Yeah.
good call out there.
By the way, not only is he a real contributor, but he is a young man with a great attitude. Like everybody, like every young person in a new position, he makes mistakes. We all do. But when, when I go to him and I say, "Hey, Andrew, this isn't the right way to do it. You need to do it this way." Never any argument, never any defensiveness. It's always, "Okay,
Yeah.
I understand. We're going to get it better next time." Just phenomenal attitude, great work ethic, just everything you want to see in a young person starting out in his career, just looking to learn and do better every day. And
Yeah.
he does phenomenal work.
Yeah, I've had the same experience too, actually. A couple of individuals over the last year, 2 years. One of them, Alex, Alex. But I think the big thing is just letting them flourish, asking that, not telling them what to do. Obviously, they're gonna have certain tasks here or there, but it's like, what do you want to do, right? What interests you? What do you think we could do better? And bringing those new ideas to the table is always great. So,
I
good
agree with
stuff.
you. Yeah, Alex, he's a huge contributor at Flying V, so much so that it wasn't until I'd been working with him and talking with him for months before I realized he was an intern. I thought like he was a senior full-time employee. There was no way to tell he was a junior guy just learning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Yeah,
Alex is out here with me in Orange County, California. Goes to my alma mater, actually, Chapman, here in Orange. So good stuff from Andrew, as always. And Alex, if you're listening too, thank you for all you do as well for the 5 things. So
yeah, great work,
moving
Alex.
forward, thing number one in the written version, we're now on thing number three. Going back to Shockwave Medical, as we talked about the Shockwave Takeover issue. Shockwave Medical, ticker SWAV, being acquired by Johnson & Johnson, who we all know and know well, ticker JNJ. Gary, tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we talked about this last week. Shockwave Medical makes a special kind of stent that can be placed where excessive calcification or hardening of the arteries prevents placing a normal stent. The prior standard of care for something like that was a device called a rotablator, which is basically like a blender on a wire. And I'm sure you can all figure out the danger of that, right? You could perforate an artery. And if you nick an artery with a blender, the patient can bleed out and die in minutes. It was a dangerous procedure. Shockwave, so much safer, so much better outcomes. They're taking share. They're growing in peripherals, which is a fancy way of saying placements for arms and legs where people have lost circulation there. The international growth is huge. Deep knowledge investing with the help and assistance of board member cardiologist Dr. Paul Thompson, who suggested the idea and brought in Dr. Dan Fram, an interventional cardiologist, to work with us and explain the technology. Deep knowledge investing took a position in the stock at 190 in December, just 4 months ago. And so at 190, I said, look, this stock is a huge buy. And our thesis is they will be bought by Johnson & Johnson, Boston Scientific, or Medtronic for somewhere between $300 and $350. And last week we got a definitive agreement from Johnson & Johnson at $335 in cash. So, literally just 2-3% above the midpoint of the range that we were talking about. DKI subscribers on this one made more than 70% in about 3.5 months, which is a pretty good way to stay in business and make a lot of money.
Gary, going back a couple years now, I think Houghton Mifflin, right? In terms of your initial recommendation for that stock, and similarly had a takeover event, and now you have Shockwave Medical here, short couple of years afterwards. Just curious from my side on a macro level, right? I mean, what is it that you look for? What do you see that others don't, right? Are there any things in particular that you can tell our viewers and listeners just about what you're looking for from a DKI perspective?
Yeah, so in the case of Houghton Mifflin, that was a company we started buying at 490 something. I want to say 492, 493.
Yep.
The company was acquired for, I think it was 21
bucks.
Yeah, 21, something like that. So DKI subscribers on that one made more than 4 times their money in 13 months. is what it was.
Right.
Just over a year, they made 4 times their money. In the case of Houghton Mifflin, the company was trading at distressed levels coming out of COVID. And what had happened was, so the company makes educational materials, and they had a horrible sales year. But the reason for that is their sales come from the Board of Ed or the PTA or whatever group in a particular school district is responsible for choosing educational materials. Well, during COVID, those groups didn't meet. They didn't get together and figure out what books they wanted to buy. And we looked at that and said, okay, well, that's a problem for this year, but that's not the case going forward. We don't have a situation where kids are, no longer going to have school books. It was, everything just got delayed. And the amazing thing about it is those weren't lost sales. Those were deferred sales. So the company traded down on a temporary lack of sales. But what we knew was, well, once these school boards start meeting, and they will, they're going to get those sales. There basically was pent up demand. And so the market was looking at it wrong. They were looking at a one-time current situation as the way it will always be. And, people are a little weird like that. People have a tendency to look at the current situation and assume that's what's going to happen. At Deep Knowledge Investing, we're focused on, okay, well, this is where we are today, but what's going to happen tomorrow? And, this is now twice in 2 years, we've uncovered stocks that have gone up huge on takeovers. At this point, Deep Knowledge Investing has more recommendations that have returned our subscribers more than 100%, that have more than doubled than we have stock picks that have lost money. That's all time. So, I don't think that's a record that's sustainable in perpetuity. I don't think that's doable forever, but it's pretty rare to have a record that good this far in.
Never say never. Keep the iron hot, Gary.
We're working on it. And actually, I have our next idea, locked, loaded, ready to go. I'm finishing up the research on it. It is definitely one of those things where the reason we're going to be buying it is because the potential is for it to go up a multiple of the current stock price.
Absolutely love that. Stay tuned for that coming up. When will that be, Gary? Do we have any time horizon on that?
I have more research calls with industry experts this week. I'm speaking with management and the newest member of the board of directors of this company later this week. And then I'll need a little time to put together a model, but that's something that subscribers should expect to see in the next few weeks. Obviously, we're not going to announce these kinds of money-making opportunities in public until much later, right? Our paying subscribers are going to have access first, and hopefully at the best prices.
Great stuff. Excited for that. Moving on, we're now thing number 4. Again, written version, thing number 2. So with our guests, we try and get them maximize their time there at the beginning of the show. So appreciate you bearing with us, kind of jumping from one thing to the next. Thing number 4, though, for the video version, Purchasing Managers Index comes in hot. We're talking PMI, Gary.
Yeah, so the PMI, the Purchasing Managers Index, that came in at 50.3 for March. And so I know what you're thinking. Is that good? Is that bad? Do I care? Yeah, you care. That 50.3 was above February's 47.8 and above expectations for 48.3. So you might say, okay, wait, it beat expectations by 2. Was that? Yeah, that's a lot. That's a big beat. So little good and bad here. On the positive side, this is a sign that the economy is expanding, right? The reason people are purchasing, the reason they're that they think the economy is better is we do have an expanding economy. That's the positive. The negative is that expansion isn't coming from healthy economic growth. It's coming from congressional overspending and the Treasury monetizing this. This is something that we've been talking about in the 5 things for months. The other issue is these are the kinds of things that will make it much harder for the Federal Reserve to lower rates. And I'll point out that in the fourth quarter of 2023, the market expected that the Fed would lower rates 6 times for a total of 1.5% in 2024, starting in January. And Deep Knowledge Investing put in writing in the fourth quarter, no, not a chance, not going to happen, and everybody's wrong. And so here we are now in April, and the expectations have already been reduced from 6 rate cuts down to 3. And the real debate is happening that's somewhere between 0 and 2 cuts. And so these are the things that are being discussed right now. We were early and right on it, and part of it is because the way the government is manipulating these economic factors will make it very hard for the Fed to lower rates.
Gary, there's been concern, as you just kind of mentioned, about the ability for the Fed to lower interest rates. Powell came out and said that he thought that the Fed would be able to lower interest rate, kind of calmed everybody down. Then on Thursday, you had, I believe it was Neel Kashkari, Minneapolis Fed president, came out and said that we shouldn't lower at all this year. What's going on with these contradictory statements? Why does it seem like all these governors are not in line or in tune with one another?
Yeah, this is a super chatty bunch, Rob. The Fed used to sort of be this mysterious thing where, they'd meet in this, building in Washington, D.C. and, they wouldn't even make a pre-announcement. You'd just sort of find out, right? Now, you find out that they changed rates. They didn't change rates. Now, this is the chattiest group of Fed governors I've ever seen in my life. These guys cannot resist a microphone. I have seen social media influencers who are better at avoiding an open microphone than our current Federal Reserve. That's like they're on a reality TV show, right? And so Powell, like the market got really upset. It saw these numbers. It saw the inflation numbers. We talked last week about the PCE. And so, Powell came out and he said, okay, everyone, no one panic. We're still going to lower rates, right? But we went from, again, 6 rate cuts starting in January to now he's like, well, we'll lower rates by the end of the year. And then Kashkari came out the next day and got in front of a microphone and said, yeah, I'm not sure we should lower at all. Now, that's a reasonable point of view. Kashkari isn't wrong, but there's something kind of nutty about the fact that we have an economy that's being run by the public mutterings of a bunch of unelected bureaucrats who have never run a business. It's more comedy, theater, and reality TV than it is real finance and economics. And yet these people, what they say moves the markets. Trillions of dollars of market cap changes hands. Trillions of dollars of currency change hands because of what these guys say in front of an open microphone. They might want to get it together.
Good luck. I will not hold my breath.
Right. Or contact, one of the networks and start their own reality TV show, right?
Well, we've got plenty of open mics here on DKI. So if any of them would want to join and come on and have a conversation, we would more than be willing to host that. So just let us know.
Right. This is an invitation to Chairman Jerome Powell and Neel Kashkari. Come on, the 5 things. Rob and I will moderate the debate. You guys can fight it out. I've got my opinion on it. You know what, Rob? I want in on that debate. It'll be the 3 of us. You're going to host and keep order. So
I will do my best. I will do my best.
We're going to have to give you like those shock buzzers from The Simpsons, right?
Something.
When you need somebody to shut up, just push the button.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
All right. So that's exciting. Powell and Kashkari, the invitation is issued. The challenge is thrown down. And we already have our moderator, Robb Fahrion.
Locked and loaded, ready to go. We can get it together in 1 day, 2 days, maybe max. So,
yeah.
All right, moving on. Final thing for this week's version. It's been a fun show already. Gary, thing number 5 of the video and thing number 3 in your written version. Economically illiterate people say silly things.
Yeah. So at this point, anybody who is in the world of finance, who, reads the newspapers, the Wall Street Journal has been writing about this. I think it was Greg Ip who's been writing about how, we as Americans are not appreciating our fantastic economy. And we talked about this last week, Rob. All these people, are saying, oh, we have a marvelous, wonderful economy and you ungrateful Americans don't appreciate it. We've poked holes in that many, many times before. The truth is inflation is worse than people are letting on. The great jobs market is that there's no increase in full-time jobs. It's all part-time jobs. All of the new jobs are going to people who were born in other countries. People who were born in the US, who are US citizens, have not had no job growth, I think, since 2018 in full-time work. So, we've talked a lot about how people love to talk about how we should be more grateful for this wonderful economy. And the latest is you also have asset gatherers who are mutual fund managers and other managers, financial managers who get paid based on their assets under management. And the reason they want lower interest rates is lower interest rates blow up huge asset bubbles. So when increasing market, if they can get the market to go up 20% on lower interest rates, guess what? Their paycheck goes up 20%. So of course they want that. They're not saying what they think is best for the country. They're talking their own book. On top of all of that, Congress and the White House have been talking about trying to get lower mortgage rates and encouraging giveaways or mortgage rate buy downs to help home buyers, including people who have entered the country in violation of federal immigration law. So, my question is, do any of these people, including people in the White House and in Congress, do any of these people understand cause and effect? The same massive governmental stimulus that caused inflation, right? We're all enjoying this inflation. Guess what? That was because of money printing. That was because of trillions of dollars of governmental stimulus. And on top of that, the same people who had interest rates at or around zero for a decade and a half, that blows up asset bubbles. That's the reason home prices are so high. And so, because these people don't understand cause and effect, what they want to do is add financial stimulus and lower interest rates to help home buyers. Those are the things that caused home prices to be as insanely high as they are now. And they're saying, well, we're going to help the buyers. No, you're not. You're going to help the sellers. And that's fine, right? If I were going to sell my house, I'd want a big price for it. But the idea that the government is going to provide stimulus and somehow target it so that it only helps the buyers is completely ridiculous. That is going to make its way into higher home prices, as it always does, because again, these people are economically illiterate. They say silly things and they don't understand cause and effect. Clear enough?
Yeah, that's definitely fair enough, Gary. And I had a question. I was looking at the takeaway on the written things, right? And you talked about retirees, savers. They like this in the sense of like, okay, earning 4 to 5% on their cash sitting in the bank. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go to bat and ask you a question for the young people, right? I saw a chart. I probably should know the reference of it, but it was just the amount of wealth that's been accumulated over the last 4 or 5 years, right? And the age bracket from 60 plus has been the largest gatherer of wealth over that period, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like young people are the ones that are really bearing the brunt of all of this. What's the message to them? What's any advice that you might have? Because it feels like that's who's really being squeezed the most in this market.
Yeah, Rob, you've got it nailed. And let's actually unravel it, going from the older people down to the younger people. And by down, I simply mean in age, not in importance or anything else like that. So what happened was, after the 2008 financial crisis, the government intervened through trillions of dollars of stimulus into the economy and lowered interest rates to zero. And again, when you lower interest rates, people frantically look for places to put their money. They don't save in their bank accounts because they're getting a 0% yield, right? We all remember just a couple of years ago, our checking accounts were yielding 0.01%, right? Or savings accounts, 0.01%, right? So what happens is you end up with a huge bubble in asset prices. In this case, that would be homes and stocks. Well, Rob, who owns homes? That would be older people. And who owns stocks? That would be older people who have been saving for years and investing for years and have 401k plans. It takes a little while to start to develop that kind of wealth. Now, when government officials start talking about how horrible high interest rates are for these people, that's a bunch of nonsense. And yeah, mortgage rates did go up, but housing prices haven't come down yet. They need to. That's one of the things that will help lower housing prices. But a key thing is, all of these retirees went from earning 0.01% on their cash balances. Now they're getting 4 or 5%. If you're a retiree, this is fantastic. So for all the government officials who are saying we need to have lower rates because these higher rates are hurting people, not necessarily. There are trillions of dollars of extra income that retirees or people who are saving in dollars are getting. Now, let's go to young people. I get it. I understand why they're so frustrated because so many jobs have been outsourced. The value of labor, the issue of job security, these things have all been completely destroyed. And these young people are saying, wait a minute, I don't have a lot of job security. I'm not making a ton of money. They have a ridiculous amount of school debt, which, by the way, the reason your educational debt is so high is because that's been heavily subsidized by the government. It's the government that took over the educational funding market. They made unlimited amounts of credit available. What do you think happened? Prices went up. The reason you guys, by you guys, I mean young people, have so much educational debt is because the government started subsidizing education and started providing financing. So the universities raised their prices. It was in the weekend's news that there are universities that are now charging $100,000 a year. They're doing that not because you 18 and 19-year-olds can afford that. They're doing that because the government is giving you a temporary lease on it, right? So these policies that they say are there to help you are destroying you. But then what happens is we have young people who, they only earn a certain amount and they're looking at the astronomical price of housing and they're saying, wait a minute, how can we buy a house? Where's our chance to participate in the American dream? This is a completely reasonable complaint, right? I understand why they're angry, dejected, delaying commitment, delaying marriage, not sure of themselves. They have a huge amount of anxiety over the future. And it's really easy. Rob, it's really easy to make fun of them and say, oh, yeah, you're all just a bunch of snowflakes who need safe spaces. Okay. Some of that stuff may be ridiculous, but let's be realistic. The concerns that many of these young people have are completely valid, completely legitimate. And if you and I were 22 years old and had school debt and we're only making a certain amount and we started to look at the cost of buying a home, which right now is completely unaffordable, we'd be feeling the same way. We'd be feeling pessimistic about the future. We'd be worried about the economy. We'd be feeling anxiety. People like to act like the anxieties and concerns and upset of these young people is them being fragile. I disagree. I think these are valid concerns. I think these people are upset for a really good reason. Here's the thing. All of the people who are claiming, and now I'm speaking to the young people who are upset about this, all of the people in government who are claiming they want to help you, everything they're doing is why you are having a hard time now. It is governmental intervention in the educational market. That's the reason why you guys have so much school debt. That's why education is so expensive. It was government intervention in the interest rate market and the mortgage market. By the way, the Federal Reserve owned $2.5 trillion of mortgage-backed securities that they are not allowed to own, right? Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all kinds of governmental or quasi-governmental agencies were intervening in the mortgage market. And what do you think happened? We didn't end up with regular home prices and inexpensive mortgages. We ended up with astronomical home prices. And now they're talking about helping more. And one of the things we've talked about a lot, right? Everybody loved the COVID stimmies, right? We got checks, $800, $1,000, $1,600. Oh, great, free money. Well, guess what? The inflation that we're experiencing now is because the government printed trillions of dollars and just vomited it out into the economy. We had more money chasing fewer goods. That's why things are so expensive. So what I would recommend for all of you is don't drop out, right? A lot of people are saying act your wage, quiet quitting, don't really work hard, don't try. I think that's a dead end. I think it's both a dead end financially and also emotionally and spiritually. Going through life just checking boxes and not being passionate about anything, not being driven about anything, I don't think that leads to a good life. And I understand why a lot of you are angry, why a lot of you are frustrated, why a lot of you feel like it's pointless to do that. the companies that you work for aren't paying you enough and they're not going to return that loyalty. I get it. But my advice for you is to continue working, make yourself valuable, put yourself in a position where you know so much and you understand your craft and your business so well that you'll be able to start something of your own down the road. Try to save and invest. Don't save in dollars. Saving in dollars is a disaster. But start to look at things like stocks, gold, Bitcoin, right? If you're 22, 23, a lot of your friends are saving in Bitcoin. That's a great thing to do. Now, some of you are going to say, hey, wait a minute. I don't have money for that. I'm doing all I can to make ends meet. And what I'm going to tell you is it's okay to start small. Even if you're just putting away $10 a week, right? That's the cost of going out for a beer in Manhattan, right? Even if it's just $10 a week, start small, but make a habit. Save, but don't save in dollars because that's going to be debased. And then you're going to hate me for this, and I apologize, but start to learn about finance. What you're being taught about finance and economics is all MMT, modern monetary theory, and Keynesian finance. That stuff is all a lie. It's designed to make everybody think that the government can simply create as much money as it needs to, and there's no cost, and we can all have everything that we want and never pay for it. But here's the deal, young people. All of that free stuff, all of that spending, all of those giveaways. Hey, guys, who do you think's getting the bill for that? Right? It's not my parents in their 80s. You guys are going to get the bill on that. If you're listening to this and you're in your 20s or you're in your 30s, if you're a Zoomer or a millennial, you're getting the bill for this. I am as well, but it's a separate matter, right? You're going to get the bill for this. And so understand that none of these things are free. None of these government programs are free. None of these giveaways are free. You're going to pay for it in inflation. You're going to pay for it in higher rent. Nobody's going to send you a bill and say, well, we had these government programs, here's your share. It's just milk is going to cost you $5 or $6. You know, the price of a beer in Manhattan is going to go to $20. Your rent is unaffordable. This is what happens. And so start to educate yourself on this. Start to learn about Austrian economics or just basic common sense that says nothing is here for free. Again, I get why a lot of you guys are angry and frustrated and anxious, and those feelings are totally valid. The only thing I will tell you is there are things you can do. It is not hopeless. Your life isn't over. Your financial life isn't over. You have a lot of resources at your disposal. And even here at Deep Knowledge Investing, you guys just saw Andrew come on, and he's getting a great finance education working directly with me. But one of the things that we've done at Deep Knowledge Investing, because we believe so strongly in educating young people and helping young people understand finance, the markets, good financial practices that will set you up for a life of prosperity, or at least a life of not being a debt slave. We have a special program for students where we offer students a subscription to Deep Knowledge Investing for what you're paying for your Netflix subscription. And if that makes sense, great, we'll help you. And if learning about finance and understanding the kinds of things you can do to protect yourself from all of the nonsense that's making your life hard, if that's not worth the cost of your Netflix subscription, that's totally cool. I respect that. And, you know, hope you're watching something great. Like, no hard feelings either way, but we do have people taking advantage of that because it matters to them and they want to prepare for a better life. But either way, I respect your decision and I understand why you guys are angry, and your feelings are totally valid.
Great stuff, Gary. I think that'll be one where I'll definitely be marketing that as if you consider yourself a young person, which I think at even 20s, 30s, even those in their 40s, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was with an entrepreneur on yesterday, actually, Sunday, and barber, 40 years old, lives at home with his mom, but he's put everything he has into his business, right? And trying to make it and work and grind and I mean, that's really what it's about. And I think you hit the nail on the head in a lot of ways in that, yeah, there is frustration, there is a lot of feelings, and I even sometimes feel it, right? Like, how am I going to get ahead? How am I going to catch up? But I think you're exactly right. It's focusing on what you can control, learning, creating more value for yourself, becoming more well-rounded, networking. I think a lot of times is a lost art, asking people for help and support or even just advice, right? I think you're a great example, just someone I can go to get advice from, and I have a lot of others too. People are genuinely, I still think, at the end of the day, willing to help and support, assuming you're in that same like-mindedness, right? Finding people that have the same values as you, same outlook, perspectives, I think helps tremendously as well. So great stuff, Gary. Appreciate that. And this week's 5 things, the Shockwave Takeover issue comes to a conclusion. Gary, any final thoughts before we wrap for today?
Yeah, Rob, I love your last point about curate the people you spend time with and ask questions. And one of the things I really enjoy is the interaction I have with Deep Knowledge Investing subscribers. I get emails from them every week, and they're personal to the extent that somebody's sitting at their kitchen table trying to figure out their finances.
Yeah.
And I'm not a registered investment advisor. Our goal is just to help people make more money. But that applies to all of us. Nobody's too good for it. And the reason Deep Knowledge Investing has, what do we have now? I think 20 people on the board of advisors. It's because I have people I go to for advice. And the beauty of being a more senior, seasoned person is you build these networks of people who are phenomenal in their field. And so, I don't just receive these calls and emails. I'm constantly calling people I know who know more than I do about a particular topic, a particular subject, and saying, hey, what do you think about this? Or how are you handling this? Or, what would you do in this situation? And we go back and forth on that. Like, whoever you are, whatever stage you are at in life, go find people who know more than you do about stuff, get to know them, ask them questions, be open, listen. And then when people come to you for advice, be generous with your time, be generous with your energy, be there for them. It's just a good way to go through life.
No doubt. Gary, thanks so much for your time. As always, we'd love if you would consider a premium subscription for Deep Knowledge Investing so that we can continue to provide you these high value, deep knowledge, research, ideas, and insights. Gary's 5 Things monthly newsletter. Be sure to at least subscribe for a free subscription online. You'll get notifications about certain material. Not all of that may be accessible because we do value, obviously, our premium subscribers that support us on a monthly basis. Good call out as well, Gary. I think for students that have interest, please don't hesitate to reach out through our contact form on the website, myself or Gary personally as well. We can definitely get that tuned up for you and ready to go. Now, as always, yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And thank you for helping us build DKI. Gary, closing remarks.
First of all, congratulations to all the Deep Knowledge Investing subscribers who just made a ton of money on Shockwave. Great having that ride with you guys. Love getting the emails and knowing that you guys all made a lot of money, and that's just rewarding. For the rest of you, thank you so much for your time. We know it's valuable. We appreciate you watching and spending this time with us. And Rob, thank you, and great seeing you as always.
Likewise. Thanks, Gary.
All right. So long, everyone.